Good morning and welcome back. Myself, Dr. Gibran Ahmed, presents to you Simply Pathology, and today we are back with another very interesting video. We are going to discuss the last part of insensitivity to growth inhibition, the role of tumor suppressor genes, part 3. So we have already read about the important tumor suppressor genes, that is the role of RB, that was the part 1, and the role of P53 tumor suppressor gene, that was part 2. Today we are going to discuss the remaining tumor suppressor genes like the APC, E-cadherin, CDKN2A, TGF-beta, P10 tumor suppressor gene, VHL, STK11, neurofibromatosis 1, NF2, BRCA gene, MSH-MLH gene, MEN1 gene, and SDH, SDHD. So these are the different kinds of genes which are playing a role in carcinogenesis, and they are acting as tumor suppressors. So individually we are going to go through each one of them and we are going to discuss them in details. So without wasting any time, let us start. First we are going to read about the APC gene. So APC is basically, it is the gatekeeper of colonic neoplasia, and APC stands for adenomatous polyp coli. Okay, adenomatous polyposis coli. It is a class of tumor suppressor gene that is acting by down-regulating the growth-promoting signaling pathways. So it is basically down-regulating the signaling pathways. That is its basic role. And it is found in the chromosome 5q21. So germline loss of function mutation of the APC gene is associated with familial adenomatous polyposis. It is basically an autosomal dominant disorder in which an individual born with one mutant allele will develop thousands of adenomatous polyp. Okay, when at a very young age, in their 20s or in their teenage, after they develop the second hit. So the child is basically, if you see, the child is born with one hit, that is there is a mutation which is involved in one APC allele. Okay, so this is a germline mutation, this is an inheritable mutation, okay, leading to, and this is inheritable in an autosomal dominant manner. This is followed by the development of the second hit. Now the child is going to develop the second hit. Remember, the second hit is the somatic mutation taking place in the second APC allele. Now after both the APC alleles are mutated, there will be development of some thousands of adenomatous polyp in the colon at a very young age, when the person is in their 20s or in their teenage years. And what is very important, that any one of these adenomatous polyp, they might undergo several additional mutation, giving rise to familial colorectal carcinoma. Remember, people who are suffering from this germline mutation, they are bound to suffer from colorectal carcinomas, because in their lifetime, because they are having thousands of adenomatous polyp, so invariably one of them, at least one of them, they undergo the malignant change and they develop colorectal carcinoma. So around 70 to 80%. So till now we had read about the germline or the familial variety of colorectal carcinoma. So APC is not only involved in the familial variety, but around 70 to 80% of the non-familial colorectal carcinoma and sporadic adenomas, they also show the acquired or the somatic defects in both the APC allele. Remember, APC is a component of the WNT signaling pathway, which has a major role in controlling cellular growth and differentiation during embryonic development. So in the resting cell, okay, when there is no WNT signaling, there is no WNT molecule that is binding with the WNT receptor, okay, so they are not binding to any of these receptors. In that situation, when the WNT is not available and there is no activation of the WNT receptor, in that situation the APC forms a complex with the beta catenin, and this complex is called as the destruction complex. Okay, it basically, in this complex, what happens, that there is a proteasomal degradation of the beta catenin by APC. Okay, so APC carries out beta catenin degradation, so there is no proliferation. Remember, beta catenin is one particular transcription factor that is necessary for growth and differentiation. How they cause growth and differentiation, we are going to see further. So in case when WNT stimulation is there, for example, now a cell requires growth and stimulation, okay, so in that situation the WNT will go and bind with the WNT receptor, and once the WNT binds with the WNT receptor, there is a blockage in the formation of destruction complex. So this APC beta catenin complex formation that was there before, This does not happen. This leads to the stabilization as well as the translocation of this transcription factor, that is beta-catenin, from the cytoplasm into the nucleus. Inside the nucleus, the beta-catenin will now bind to a transcription factor called as TCF, and they give rise to a complex called as the beta-catenin TCF complex that stimulates further transcription factors. At the level of the nucleus, they are going to stimulate further transcription factors like the MYC and cyclin D, and you all know that this MYC and the cyclin D stimulation will lead to growth and proliferation of the colonic epithelial cell. So this is all that is happening normally. Okay, this is happening normally when there is a WNT pathway stimulation. This is how there is a growth and proliferation of colonic epithelial cells. Remember, there should not be formation of APC beta-catenin, okay, if growth is desired, okay, because if APC beta-catenin complex is formed, then beta-catenin will be destroyed by the APC and there will be no growth and differentiation. So let us see what happens in tumor. So there is a tumor cell where the APC has been mutated. So there is an inactivation of the APC gene. So there is no formation of destruction complex. Remember, before this, we saw that in the normal WNT stimulation pathway, there was a stimulation by the WNT. Okay, only then there was a blockage of the formation of destruction complex. But in case of tumor where they are having a mutated APC, in the absence of any growth signaling, in the absence of any WNT, there is no formation of destruction complex. So beta-catenin is always free. That is forming the beta-catenin TCF complex, which is going to stimulate the further nuclear transcription factors like MYC and cyclin D, which is going to allow cell cycle to progress, and there will be growth and proliferation of colonic epithelial cell. Actually, I would say there will be uncontrolled growth and proliferation of colonic epithelial cell, giving rise to adenomas and subsequently carcinomas. Okay, so just remember one thing, that beta-catenin, whenever beta-catenin is free, it is going to cause growth and proliferation, and beta-catenin can only be free if APC is not working. Okay, so if this APC beta-catenin destruction complex is not formed, in that particular situation growth and proliferation will occur. Okay, now in many colonic tumors with a normal APC gene, they are having mutations in the beta-catenin directly. So this beta-catenin, they are escaping APC mediated destruction. So even if APC is all right, and they found that in many colonic or colorectal carcinomas, okay, the APC gene was not mutated. Then they were asking why then they are having the tumors, because they were having direct mutations in the beta-catenin. So this beta-catenin, that is the mutated beta-catenin, it escaped APC mediated destruction, and ultimately beta-catenin was free, acting as an oncoprotein and stimulating further downstream pathways, leading to growth and proliferation. Now remember, dysregulation of this APC beta-catenin pathway is not only confined to colorectal carcinoma, it is also found in other tumors. Which tumor it is found? Gain of function mutation in beta-catenin is found in 20% of hepatocellular carcinomas. Okay, so now we are going to go to another gene, that is the E-cadherin gene. Okay, another tumor suppressor gene. So basically what E-cadherin is? E-cadherin is basically a cell surface protein that maintains intercellular adhesiveness. It is having a role in keeping the two cells together. Okay, remember beta-catenin protein that we read before, this is the same protein which is also binding to the E-cadherin. Okay, remember, so as long as the cells, okay, they are together, and okay, so the beta-catenin will remain attached to the E-cadherin. So as soon as there will be some kind of wound or injury to the epithelium wherein the cell will lose contact with each other, there will be disruption of the interaction between E-cadherin and beta-catenin. So now that the two cells are not in contact with each other, okay, the contact between E-cadherin and beta-catenin will also be distorted. This is going to lead to the translocation of beta-catenin into the nucleus, and as you remember, we have just seen before, when the beta-catenin goes inside the nucleus, it is going to stimulate growth and proliferation of the cell. So in normal situations like in wound and injury to the epithelium, this is going to help in wound repair. This is how normally a repair process is taking place. So once the wound is repaired means once there is a re-establishment of the contact between the cells, there will be reduced proliferation of the epithelial cells as the beta-catenin will again be sequestered to the E-cadherin. So this is called as contact inhibition. We say that the beta-catenin is now contact inhibited. So when there is a loss of contact inhibition, how? Because of mutation of E-cadherin also called as CDH1 gene. So suppose there is a mutation of E-cadherin or there is a mutation of beta-catenin. The end result is that E-cadherin no longer can sequester the beta-catenin, and that will lead to increased amount of beta-catenin being free and translocating into the nucleus, leading to uncontrolled proliferation and ultimately causing malignancy. Remember, reduced E-cadherin expression is seen in many cancers, for example, cancers of the esophagus, colon, breast, ovary, and prostate. Okay. Now remember, germline loss of function mutation of E-cadherin, that is CDH1, is found in familial gastric carcinomas. And remember that a proportion of sporadic gastric cancers also are associated with a reduced expression of E-cadherin. So whenever the mutation will be germline or inheritable, it will lead to familial cancers. And whenever it is somatic or sporadic, okay, they can also show some loss of function mutation, but it is sporadic, it is not germline. Okay, so both in case of familial cancers as well as in case of sporadic cancers, loss of function mutation of E-cadherin will lead to malignancy. Okay. The next tumor suppressor gene, that is the CDKN2A, we have already read about it, that the CDKN2A is encoding two proteins. Okay, one is your cell cycle, cyclin dependent kinase inhibitor, that is your P16INK4A. This is causing inhibition of your CDK4 cyclin D complex inhibition. So once it will be inhibited, the RB will be in hypophosphorylated state and that will be in active state. Okay, that is going to block the cell cycle. Particularly, it is going to enforce the G1S checkpoint. Okay, so the cell cycle will be stopped and proliferation will be halted. Another protein encoded by the CDKN2A gene is the P14ARF. Now it is basically inhibiting MDM2, and you all know that MDM2 is involved in degradation of P53. So if the MDM2 is inhibited, it is going to increase the levels of P53, which itself is going to block the cell cycle. So when there is a mutation of the CDKN2A, there will be loss of function of both RB as well as P53 indirectly. Okay, so CDKN2A, when they are having the germline mutations, it is going to lead to familial forms of melanoma, whereas the sporadic mutations lead to bladder carcinomas, head and neck tumors, ALL, that is acute lymphoblastic lymphoma, as well as cholangiocarcinomas. In cervical carcinomas, the P16 function is silenced by hypermethylation rather than mutation. And you all remember that hypermethylation, if you have read the first chapter, you will remember that hypermethylation is basically one of the forms of epigenetic changes. Okay, so basically remember that CDKN2A, if it is in the germline mutation, means it is inherited from the parents, it will lead to familial form of melanoma. Or if it is mutated sporadically or or basically suffering from somatic mutation, then it is going to lead to bladder, head and neck, ALL and cholangiocarcinoma. Now we are going to read about the TGF-beta pathway. If you look at the TGF-beta pathway, in most normal epithelial, endothelial and hematopoietic cells, the TGF-beta is a potent inhibitor of proliferation. So this TGF-beta is basically how does this TGF-beta pathway work? So TGF-beta is a factor that is going to stimulate TGF-beta receptor, and that is leading to downstream intracellular signaling. Okay, in the signaling pathway, a transcription factor is involved called as SMAD4 also. Okay, so the net result is they are going to stimulate the anti-proliferative genes, which are cyclin dependent kinase inhibitors. Okay, and they are going to inhibit the proliferative genes like the MYC, cyclin and cyclin dependent kinase. So the net result is a hyperphosphorylated or an active form of RB, leading to cell cycle arrest. This is what normally the TGF-beta pathway is. The TGF-beta pathway basically inhibits cell growth. So if there is a loss of function mutation in the TGF-beta pathway, can lead to cancer. For example, mutations of the TGF-beta receptor is found in carcinomas of the stomach, colon and endometrium. Then mutation in SMAD4 is found in pancreatic carcinoma. Mutation in the target genes of TGF-beta pathway, is basically, for example, like loss of P21 function of persistent MYC expression. Okay, so the target genes, if mutated, so the target genes of TGF-beta pathway, if it is mutated, can lead to loss of P21 PTEN1 function or a persistent MYC expression leading to carcinoma. Next, we will read about the PTEN tumor suppressor gene. So the PTEN stands for phosphatase and tensin homologue. It is a phosphatase which is encoded by a gene on the chromosome number 10, which is mutated in a syndrome called as Cowden syndrome. So basically the mutation of PTEN, familial variety of mutation of the PTEN, leads to an autosomal dominant disorder called as Cowden syndrome, which is characterized by multiple skin appendigeal tumors, plus there is an increased risk of carcinoma of the breast, endometrium as well as thyroid. PTEN is acting as a tumor suppressor by putting brake in the PI3K-AKT pathway. So if you remember, the first hallmark of cancer that I read and where I discussed the two pathways, that is the PI3K as well as the MAP kinase, you remember that diagram I have shown that PTEN is a tumor suppressor because it is inhibiting the PI3K-AKT pathway. PTEN gene function is lost in many cancers through deletion, point mutation and epigenetic silencing. Now we will read about another very important tumor suppressor gene, that is the VHL gene. So VHL gene is found in chromosome 3p and the full form is von Hippel-Lindau. So the mutation of this VHL gene, if it is acquired in the germline always means inheritable mutation. Okay, it is going to lead to hereditary renal cell carcinoma. But if the mutation is somatic, means acquired in the lifetime, it is going to lead to sporadic renal cell carcinoma. The VHL gene is encoding a protein called as the VHL protein. So what is the role of this VHL protein? Let us see how it is acting as a tumor suppressor. This VHL protein is a component of a ubiquitin ligase which carries out degradation of protein substrate. One such protein substrate is HIF1 alpha, that is hypoxia inducible factor 1 alpha, which is basically a transcription factor. So in presence of oxygen, this HIF1 alpha is hydroxylated, and this hydroxylated form of HIF1 alpha, it then binds with the VHL and is degraded. Okay, it is then binding with the VHL and it is degraded. But if, for example, in conditions of hypoxia, if there is hypoxia, then this HIF1 alpha is not hydroxylated. So if it is not hydroxylated, it is going to escape the degradation by the VHL, and ultimately the increased level of HIF1 alpha, okay, it stimulates multiple factors which is going to favor growth and proliferation. Like it is going to stimulate vascular endothelial growth factor leading to angiogenesis. It is going to stimulate PDGF, that is platelet derived growth factor, which is acting as a mitogen and stimulating mitosis. It is also going to stimulate GLUT1, which is going to stimulate the Warburg effect. What is the Warburg effect? More of this will be clear in the next lecture. So suffice is to say that in the presence of the VHL protein, when the VHL protein is functioning normally, HIF1 alpha is kept in check by degradation and there is no excess growth and proliferation. But in the absence of VHL gene, there will be increased amount of HIF1 alpha leading to increased growth and differentiation. Okay, so loss of function mutation in the VHL will prevent the degradation of the HIF1 alpha even under normal oxygen condition, leading to growth and proliferation under normal condition. That is when the oxygen levels are normal. Even in that situation, there will be growth and proliferation. The next tumor suppressor gene is the STK11 or LKB1 gene. It is encoding a serine threonine kinase, which is an important regulator of cell metabolism. Now, germline loss of function mutation of STK11 leads to a syndrome called as Peutz-Jeghers syndrome. Now, this syndrome is basically an autosomal dominant disorder characterized by multiple benign polyps, and it is also associated with increased risk of other cancers like gastrointestinal and pancreatic carcinomas. Sporadic loss of function mutation of STK11 is also common. Now, the next important tumor suppressor gene is the NF1 gene, which is encoding a protein called as neurofibromin, which is acting as a normal brake in the RAS signaling pathway. As you all know, RAS is an oncogene and RAS signaling is an oncogenic signaling pathway. So it is acting as a brake for this particular pathway. With the loss of neurofibromin function, the RAS will now become trapped in the active state. Okay, so what will happen, that there will be unchecked growth and proliferation. Okay, unchecked growth and proliferation will occur. So NF1 gene mutation can either be germline mutation or it can be somatic. So in the germline mutation, okay, if there is a germline mutation of the NF1 gene, it is going to lead to a condition called as neurofibromatosis type 1, which is characterized by benign fibromas, benign neurofibromas, optic nerve gliomas, and MPNST. MPNST stands for malignant peripheral nerve cell tumor. malignant peripheral nerve sheath tumor. Now, other kind of mutation in NF1 is your somatic mutation leading to sporadic carcinomas like neuroblastoma and juvenile myeloid leukemia. The next gene is the neurofibromatosis 2 gene, NF2 gene. So it is basically encoding a protein called as neurofibromin 2, also called as MERLin. Now the basic role of this protein is to provide cytoskeletal stability, which helps to maintain the cell-to-cell contact and prevents uncontrolled growth. So as you all remember, whenever the two cells are being in contact, okay, it is always going to inhibit growth and proliferation. Whenever the cell contact is lost, after that only uncontrolled growth and proliferation occur. So cells which are lacking NF2 or MERLin do not establish a stable cell-to-cell contact, and they are insensitive to normal growth arrest signals generated by the proper cell-to-cell contact. NF2 can be mutated in two ways, just like NF1. So the germline mutation of NF2 will lead to neurofibromatosis type 2, which is characterized by acoustic schwannomas and meningiomas, whereas the somatic mutation of NF2 will lead to sporadic tumors or sporadic schwannomas and meningiomas. Okay, now we are going to read about the WT1 gene. So this WT1 gene is basically a transcription factor which is encoded by the WT1 gene present in chromosome 11p13. It is involved in activation of the genes involved in renal and gonadal differentiation. So loss of function mutation of the WT1 gene is associated with both familial as well as the sporadic forms of Wilms tumor. Now, though WT1 is a tumor suppressor gene, it acts as an oncogene in certain neoplasia. So already, as we know, WT1 is a tumor suppressor gene, but in many tumors it is also acting as an oncogene. Why we are saying this? In certain neoplasias like in leukemias and breast carcinoma, the WT1 level, instead of getting reduced, it is overexpressed, so suggesting that it might act as an oncogene in certain situation. Another gene is our patched gene. So it is a tumor suppressor gene which is encoding a protein called as patched1, which is a negative regulator of a growth signaling pathway called as the hedgehog signaling pathway. In absence of this patch protein, there is an uncontrolled stimulation of the hedgehog pathway, which will stimulate MYC and cyclins, leading to growth and proliferation. So for this patched gene, if there is a germline loss of function mutation, it is going to lead to Gordon syndrome characterized by basal cell carcinoma and medulloblastoma, whereas the somatic mutations or sporadic tumors will be again of the same type, but they will be sporadic like the BCC and medulloblastoma. Now comes the BRCA gene. If you look at the BRCA gene, so these are the other miscellaneous tumor suppressor genes. There are two genes. One is the BRCA1 gene present in chromosome 17, and then there is a BRCA2 which is present in chromosome number 13. So remember, both these genes are involved in the repair of double-stranded DNA breaks. So if there is a mutation in these genes, 80 to 90% of the familial breast carcinoma syndrome and rarely sporadic breast cancers can occur. So remember, BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene mutation is associated with 80 to 90% of the familial breast cancers, and rarely it might give rise to sporadic breast cancers also. Familial means that these mutations are inherited, okay, from their parents. Okay, a very famous personality who had this mutation was Angelina Jolie, if you all remember. Now mutation of this particular, okay, this germline mutation of BRCA1 will lead to breast carcinoma, ovarian carcinoma, pancreatic and prostate carcinoma. Similarly, BRCA2 mutation will also lead to the same cancer. Along with that, it is going to have an increased risk of male breast carcinomas. Also, the risk of breast carcinoma is lesser compared to BRCA1. It is 30 to 60%. And the risk of ovarian carcinoma is also less as compared to BRCA1. It is 10 to 20%. So this is all about BRCA. Now the two other genes is MSH, MLH gene and MEN1 gene. So this MSH2, MLH1, MSH6, they are involved in DNA mismatch repair. So mutations in MSH2 or MLH1, if there is a germline familial mutation, that is inherited mutation, is going to lead to an hereditary syndrome called as HNPCC, that is hereditary non-polyposis colon carcinoma. Whereas somatic or sporadic mutations over here will lead to colon and endometrial carcinoma. The next tumor suppressor gene is MEN1, which encodes a protein called as menin, which is acting as a transcription factor. So mutation in MEN1, if it is in the germline, leads to MEN1 syndrome, which is characterized by pituitary, parathyroid, pancreatic, endocrine tumors. Similarly, the somatic or the sporadic mutations leading to pituitary, parathyroid and pancreatic endocrine tumor. The only difference is in the germline, the mutation, one of the hit is already present since birth, and for just another hit takes very less amount of time. So the germline mutations, they present far more earlier as compared to the sporadic or somatic mutation. Now HDHB and HDHD tumor suppressor gene. So if you look about this, so mutation in this gene, if be in the germline familial, can give rise to familial paraganglioma and familial pheochromocytoma, whereas if it be sporadic or somatic, it will lead to plain and simple sporadic paragangliomas. With this, we complete the entire second hallmark of our neoplasia, that is the role of tumor suppressor genes in oncogenesis. So before I would like to conclude, I would like to say thank you to everyone for your love and support towards this channel. If you think that this channel is helping you in any way, please contribute towards this channel at www.paypal.me/simplypathology, the description of which and the link is provided in the description box. And for undergraduate and postgraduate classes, you can contact me at this particular number. So thank you very much guys for watching this video. Hope you have understood this video, and stay tuned. We will be back with more videos. Thank you.